Hey guys, UFC 200, the big one. Follow me on Twitter, link in the description. Look out for a collaboration video with me, Best MMA Picks, and MMA Savant. By the time that you're watching this, that video will probably already have been filmed. So check the description for a link to that video. If not, I'll let you guys know through Twitter when we're filming that, and I'll provide you with a link on Twitter. And also check out my prediction videos for the other events during International Fight Week. Dos Anjos versus Alvarez, and the Tough 23 finale. UFC 200, I'm really excited for it. A bit nostalgic or emotional for me, because UFC 100 was the first UFC event that I watched live, and since then I just watched every single event, every single fight I could after that, except for 103. I remember I did not get that pay-per-view, but every other event I've watched, and they didn't used to air all the prelims, but once they started airing the full cards, I watched every single prelim. So 100 events later, 100 numbered events later, UFC 200. One criticism of the card that I've been hearing, I kind of agree with. The card doesn't feel like it doesn't feel very natural. They're really trying to force the magic here with all these title fights. But if they had to force something, this is exactly what I would hope for. 3 title fights, and maybe it's not the best main card of any UFC event ever. Maybe 189, UFC 100, those just had more of a natural kind of intrigue to them. But definitely, I think we can all agree, the best prelim card in UFC history. I mean, they stacked the main card with all those title fights. That you have Zingano, Hendricks, Dillashaw, Diego Sanchez, Gegard Mousasi, and Jim Miller all in the prelim. So I think it's the best prelim card in history. And like I said, maybe not the best main card, but just trying to throw together a really great, fun card that hopefully turns out to be really great. I think this is the best you could hope for. So I'm really excited for UFC 200. Okay, first fight on the UFC Fight Pass prelim card at lightweight, Jim Miller versus Takanori Gomi. Miller, I think, is the easy pick here. He's definitely been on the decline, but not like Gomi has. Gomi's fallen a lot further, and he's been declining for a lot longer than Miller has. He's just getting run over by guys. The first round knockout loss to Miles Jury. Joe Lauzon finished him in the first round as well. Miller is still a really strong grappler. Took Chiesa's back early in that fight, and on the feet he can occasionally hurt people. I think the Yancy Medeiros fight was the last time he finished anyone, but he's a solid striker, and showed good, decent wrestling in the Danny Castillo fight. Gomi, he's a brawler. He has been known to catch people before, but I don't think he catches Jim Miller. I think Miller probably outboxes him, and on the ground I expect him to have a big advantage there. So I'm going to take Jim Miller here by submission. Yeah. Didn't look good in the Diego Sanchez fight. That was a kind of a surprising loss, even though I picked Sanchez. But Gomi can't out-wrestle him like that. So I'm definitely going with Miller by submission. All right, next up at middleweight, Gegard Mousasi versus Thiago Santos. I like this. I think this is a better, more favorable matchup for Mousasi than his original opponent would have been, Derek Brunson. I was actually going to take Brunson in that fight. Here I'm taking Mousasi. I think it's really close though. Obviously Santos is on a tear right now, looking great. A very dangerous striker. Really crisp Muay Thai game. You know, really good finishing ability on the feet. But I have a hard time seeing Santos really dominating Mousasi on the feet, who is a technical striker. Maybe limited in his arsenal of strikes, but has a long jab. Comes forward even in the Machida fight where he was getting outpointed, outstruck. Kept coming forward, and that Machida fight is why I have a concern taking Mousasi here, because Santos has a really good kicking game that I think he could have a lot of success with against Mousasi. But Mousasi's not an easy guy to put away like Marquardt and some of the other guys that Santos has beaten on the tear. Marcelo Guamare, Steve Bossi. Obviously, Mousasi is a way higher level fighter than those guys. Santos still looked great against Elias Theodorou, but couldn't finish him, and he had a big technical advantage over him. So I think fighting a guy like Mousasi, who's super patient, very calculated, good forward pressure, really doesn't get caught up in the brawl. I think Santos may win the first round here, but then Mousasi is going to adjust and really kind of take over with the jab and the forward movement. We saw Hall really kind of throw Santos off his game when he started coming forward. And then the grappling, Mousasi, early against Hall, looked great on the ground, great control from top position. Also in the Philippou fight, laid and prayed him, but I thought it was a really good technical grappling display from him. I think he can have an advantage there. Santos has been submitted before by Cesar Ferreira, and also I remember on Tough Brazil was out-grappled pretty dominantly by Leonardo Santos. So Mousasi is a big step up in competition. Santos has been looking great. I do think that Santos has a real chance of winning as the more diverse striker, especially with the kicks, but I like Mousasi to win a decision here. All right, next up at lightweight, Diego Sanchez versus Joe Lauzon. I am really looking forward to this fight, not just because I think it's going to be an awesome brawl, but I'm really intrigued by this fight to see who's going to come out on top here. I've been back and forth many times since this matchup was announced. I have a concern taking Sanchez because I just think he's really hampered physically at this point in his career. He does not look good out there athletically, not mobile, really has trouble covering ground. Physically, the guy looks scary, looks very gaunt, although he is coming back to lightweight after how many fights did he have at featherweight there? I think it was just the Lamas fight that he went down to featherweight for. But yeah, he looked terrible, I thought, in the Lamas fight physically, and really has for a while. But also it's kind of shown in his game, like I said, just doesn't look mobile against Miller, even though he won, and I picked him to win. Thought he looked really stiff, both on the feet and even with his takedowns. And I think even though Lauzon's boxing has just looked abysmal in several fights, Michael Johnson, Mac Danzig fight, and especially his last fight against Evan Dunham, even though his boxing has looked terrible, he's had some fights where his boxing has just looked pretty solid, or at least effective, like in the Varner fight. Managed to get a doctor stoppage over Chiesa because of Sanchez's limited mobility and athleticism right now in his career. I think that could allow Lauzon to have another one of those surprisingly successful striking performances. But why I am picking Sanchez is because Lauzon just can't hurt him. I don't see that happening. Sanchez just took a massive beating by Lamas, who's a technical, way more powerful striker than Lauzon, and if he couldn't get him out of there, I don't see Lauzon hurting him at all. And if he doesn't hurt him, I think Sanchez is eventually gonna, come forward and land a big hard shot. And I'd say Sanchez is definitely more durable right now. Lauzon, we've seen him put out by Iaquinta, Pettis, Dunham really beat him up in his last fight. So I would say if one guy's going to get dropped here, I'd say it's definitely going to be Lauzon. And then on the ground, that's really interesting because Lauzon is not a good wrestler, even though he's a pretty talented submission artist. Against Dunham, he never really committed to the takedown at all, even though he was badly losing on the feet. Thought that was really weird. And Sanchez uses wrestling pretty well against Miller. I think Sanchez could take Lauzon down, but again, because of his physical condition, I think Lauzon might be able to submit him, but I don't know. I don't know about that. The guys who Lauzon has submitted have not been, really high-level guys. Gomi and guys like that. So I'm going to take Sanchez here. I think he's more durable. Probably, weathers a storm by Lauzon, finds his way inside and cracks him with something hard. Also, even though he lost and it was a really wild, sloppy brawl, the fight against Melendez, he managed to drop him and even took Melendez's back standing for a brief period in the first round in that fight. That's still, an accomplishment, having a competitive fight with him, and Lauzon just hasn't really had a moment like that against a really top guy. So that's another reason why I'm taking Sanchez. So I'm going to take Sanchez to win a decision, but like I said, I've been back and forth on it many times, and I wouldn't be surprised if Lauzon comes out here and just looks like the fresher, younger guy. So I don't know if he's younger, but the more athletic guy. But I'm taking Sanchez for a decision. All right, at lightweight, Sage Northcutt versus Enrique Marin. I'm taking Marin here, and I watched Tough Latin America. Probably most fans, even hardcores, didn't. But I just think, and I'm not. This isn't me saying that I don't think Northcutt can ever win another fight in the UFC or have success. Even if he didn't improve at all, I still think there are guys he can beat in the UFC with his current game the way it is. But Marin, first of all, I thought he won against Eric Montano. It was a really uneventful fight and not a good performance at all. He looked really reluctant and hesitant. I thought he won, though. I scored it for him. And I thought he looked good on the show, and I understand the competition level is probably really weak there. But against Hector Aldana, go, fire that up on your Fight Pass. Aldana, he won his first fight against... it doesn't matter, but he won his fight with grappling, with wrestling, taking the guy down and holding him down, ground and pounding him. And Marin took him down very early, right out of the gate, took his back and submitted him. And I just think he won his first fight, Marin did, with striking. And I just think that's a more complete game than Northcutt has. Northcutt really tries to force the finish early, with his athleticism, and against a more durable guy than Trevino. that's just not working. It didn't work against Cody. What was his name? You know who I'm talking about. Can't remember the guy's name. Cody, that he couldn't get him out of there early. Got taken down in that first round. Came back and got the submission, but couldn't get him out of there, and was on his back for a bit. And then obviously in the Barberena fight, couldn't get him out of there. I don't think he's going to be able to just run over Marin. Maybe he could. I don't know how Marin's chin is, but I just see a more complete game, a more complete fighter in Marin. And he's definitely no Yair Rodriguez, but even some of the other guys, the runner-ups from tough Latin America, have had some really surprising success in the UFC. These are not bad fighters at all. Diego Rivas with that flying knee knockout over Noad Lahat. Eric Perez is, or not Eric Perez, Alejandro Perez, he's doing really well. So these tough Latin America guys, you can't count them out, and a lot of them are having good success. I think Marin just has a more complete game. I think he probably takes Northcutt down, a little more patient and technical on the feet. I like him to weather that early storm and win a decision. So I'm taking Marin by decision. All right, next up at bantamweight, TJ Dillashaw versus Rafael Assuncao. Have to go with Dillashaw. I thought Assuncao won the first fight, but even against the Dillashaw back then, nearly got finished. Dillashaw took his back on the feet and had the choke in, nearly put him out. And Dillashaw's improved so much since then. Obviously, he's become champion. That was 2 fights before he fought Renan Barão the first time. And, we're just looking at a completely different fighter. So if he had a really close fight where he nearly finished Assuncao back then, who's only fought once, or only fought twice since that first Dillashaw fight, and, got pretty clear-cut wins against Caraway and Munoz, but, didn't finish, didn't look dominant, didn't really look like he had anything new to his game. If the old Dillashaw nearly finished this guy, I think now he does finish him. Assuncao, he's a good boxer. He has tight, quick combinations, but Dillashaw has just really developed his own very unique, very elusive style with his footwork and his hands, has finishing power. So I think he outstrikes Assuncao, either knocks him out or takes the back again and gets that submission. So I'm going to take Dillashaw here pretty confidently. All right, next up at welterweight, Johnny Hendricks versus Kelvin Gastelum. This is a weird fight. I like Hendricks. Some people seem to think he's on a decline. I'm not convinced of that. I do think he just kind of has these bizarre lapses, mental lapses, or just kind of points in his career, especially the second Lawler fight, in that 5th round where he's just falling to his knees, giving away position to Lawler against the fence, letting him tee off, and then after the fight, what did he say after the fight? I think he said that, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking of the GSP fight, but I think he said that, if he thought that he was down on the cards, he wouldn't have fought that way in the 5th round. To me, that's insane. And obviously, look bad against Wonder Boy, but we know how great Wonder Boy is now. I'm not sold that Hendricks is on a decline. I think he has stagnated, though. He's not really adding anything new to his game. The Matt Browne fight, he went back to his wrestling, but we know that Hendricks does not have big ground and pound. Has never had that. He's going to take you down and pretty much just hold you there. Probably even get outworked from bottom. And on the feet, I think he's really stagnated. Matt Browne was making him really uncomfortable on the feet. He did not want to exchange. I think Gastelum probably has the better fundamental boxing. more of a combination striker. But I just don't see any phase of the game where he beats Hendricks. I don't see him catching Hendricks and dropping him. Hendricks, I think, has definitely had the bigger power over his career. Has all those knockouts on his resume. Not lately, but if they just brawl, I would like Hendricks' chances to knock out Gastelum more than the other way around. And then wrestling, Gastelum's a good wrestler, scrappy. I think Hendricks' wrestling has just been more dominant against better competition. So even while Hendricks has had some really weird, kind of bizarre moments where, like the Lawler fight and just not looking good at all against Thompson, and even the Browne fight where he didn't look that great on the feet. I just don't think Gastelum really has the game to beat Hendricks in any area. I think they're kind of mirror images of each other. Wrestle boxers, and Hendricks is just better at it. So I have to take Hendricks here. Gastelum, he was dropped by Story. I could see Hendricks getting the knockout, but I'm going to take Hendricks just to win a decision here. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see a diminished Hendricks and Gastelum just outworks him, out-wrestles him, wins a decision. All right, women's bantamweight, Kat Zingano versus Juliana Pena. I have a hard time seeing Pena winning this fight. Zingano has struggled with grapplers in the past. The Miesha Tate fight, where she was taken down first couple rounds, turned it around in the third, got the TKO finish. Also against Amanda Nunes, was dropped early and I think mounted following the knockdown. But I think Pena is still very raw. I wouldn't be surprised if she gets her down the first round, and then Zingano adjusts, is able to keep it on the feet, and from there I think she has a big advantage. Pena's striking is still extremely stiff, very unrefined. I think Zingano would just really hurt her and beat her up on the feet. She's just a better striker. I don't think Pena can out-wrestle her for 3 rounds, and I certainly don't see Pena taking her down and pounding her out, which is how she's gotten a couple of her wins in the UFC, but against weaker competition. Who was it? Milana Dudieva, and who was the first woman she fought? Jessica Rakoczy in the finale. I don't see her doing that to Zingano, who's just very tenacious, gritty. Even Jessica I took Pena's back briefly in their fight, so she can be put in a bad position on the ground. So I like Zingano here. The layoff, the really long layoff, what is it, 2 years now? A year and a half. That's definitely a big question, but I think Zingano just has a more complete game, big advantage on the feet, and probably good enough to at least not get finished and get the fight back to the feet if she's taken down, and from there take over. On to the main card of heavyweight, Cain Velasquez versus Travis Browne. Unless Velasquez is just a really diminished version of himself, I don't see how he loses this, really. Browne is not a fighter who I think has really been improving over his last few fights. He cannot trade in the pocket. He can get that knockout at range. He likes those front kicks, leaping in with those big shots. But Arlovsky just schooled this guy. Even in the Mitrione fight, he was not winning that fight at all up until the eye poke. Browne would have to keep Velasquez on the outside with those front kicks, those long strikes. And I guess it's possible Verdum, who was a taller, longer fighter than Kane, countered him really well when Kane was trying to come in. But I don't see that from Browne. I just don't think we've seen the confidence in his hands against Mitrione. Like I said, really didn't do much, was losing up until the eye poke. And if he was hesitant against Mitrione, I don't see him, being able to keep Velasquez outside. And then from there, I think Velasquez just does his usual thing, gets him against the fence and just pummels him. The takedown defense from Browne's going to be interesting. He has those classic elbows to the temple, from when he's defending takedowns, and being the bigger guy, and showing some decent takedown defense against Barnett. That could be interesting, but I think Velasquez would probably eventually get him down, and from there, I just think he pummels Browne. So even a 75% Velasquez, I think, is still enough to beat Browne. But we'll have to see. But I'm taking Velasquez. I'm probably going to take him by TKO here. All right, at featherweight, Jose Aldo versus Frankie Edgar for the interim belt. I think this fight is not as simple as saying, Aldo just got embarrassed by McGregor. Edgar's been on a roll, and therefore Edgar will win. I'm still taking Edgar, and partly for those reasons, but I think it, is a much more, it's not that simple. It's a much more dangerous fight for Edgar than just that. I think Edgar is still hittable, even though he didn't take any damage in the Mendes fight. He did get hit, a fair amount. I think in the Faber fight, more than I would have expected, even though that was a pretty slow fight and not much happened. But I think Faber did bloody him. I think it was with a knee, and then. The Cub Swanson fight didn't take much damage at all, but a guy as athletic as Aldo, and we saw in the first fight, snapping that front kick, really connecting, and just being the more athletic, quicker guy, he was able to land a lot of more impactful shots on Edgar that I think really, swayed the judges to give him the decision. A guy as athletic and as technical as Aldo, he can always pull out one of those deadly strikes. But Edgar has just improved so much. I mean, this was a guy a couple years ago when he fought Charles Oliveira, had a pretty even fight with Oliveira. Well, not even, but Oliveira was competitive with him on the feet, and that just sounds crazy now. When you think of him just one-shot KOing Chad Mendes. I think his wrestling is probably better than it's ever been. We saw that in the Swanson fight. And I scored the first fight for Edgar. It was really close. Aldo definitely landed the bigger shots, but as the fight went on, as Aldo has always done, he faded. Edgar started to come on strong, and with Edgar just looking a lot better in his past several fights, and Aldo just coming off of that devastating loss to McGregor, and you have to wonder where his head is at, where he's at mentally. Being such a dominant champion for so long, and just getting destroyed by McGregor like that. Is his confidence going to be shaken? Is he, going to be physically damaged, shell-shocked? You got to go with Edgar to pull out the decision, but I do think it's close. I think Aldo makes it competitive. Edgar's still hittable, but I like Edgar to win the decision. I think he has more confidence in his hands, throws more volume now than he ever has before, and just does enough to outpoint and outwork Aldo. Maybe lands some takedowns late, But yeah, I'm taking Edgar for the decision. All right, at women's bantamweight for the championship, Miesha Tate versus Amanda Nunes. This is a I think a typical Miesha Tate fight where she's gonna be in big danger early, but if the fight goes into the second, third round, Tate should pull away and have a pretty big advantage. But I mean, Tate was dropped, nearly finished by McMahon, and that just sounds. I mean, that sounds ridiculous, even to myself, hearing myself say that. But she was dropped by McMahon, and I just think Nunes, as dangerous a Muay Thai striker as she is, seeing what she did to McMahon. If Miesha Tate is coming out slow out of the gate and getting dropped by McMahon, what's Nunes going to do to her? Even against home, we really saw that Tate is not a very technical striker. From distance, she is pretty much lost. And Nunes isn't home or anything. She's not the distance striker that home is, but I would say she's a more technical striker than Tate and can really put volume and pressure on her early. So I see Nunes hurting Tate, and I think she can finish her. That's tough for me to say because Tate is really durable. But having McMahon on top of you is a lot different than Amanda Nunes. So I think Nunes gets a finish here, but if she gasses out, which is very likely, she did it in the Zingano fight, even in the last fight against Shevchenko. Tate will have the better grappling at that point. She'll get top position, hold her down, and from there, a gassed out Nunes, I think Tate could sub her, pound her out. It's a really even fight, I think, in that respect. I really like Nunes early, and even just going into the second round, I think the advantage immediately shifts to Tate. So it's really just a question of do you think Nunes can get her out of there early, because I do not like Nunes to win a decision. I don't like her to get a finish in the second or third round. But I kind of think she can get that finish. I do, because Tate's just been a slow starter, even against I, where I think she dropped her. I think it was in the first round that she dropped I, but even early, I was able to land some punches on her. Seemed like she made her a little uncomfortable. I'm taking Nunes, kind of feeling hesitant about it now, but I do think it's just another level of fighter that can really be dangerous early, that is another class, a class above McMahon, Jessica I, that Tate still had to weather an early storm against in those fights. So I'm taking Nunes for I say a first round submission, I think. All right, co-main event at heavyweight: Brock Lesnar versus Mark Hunt. I'm looking forward to this. Lesnar, as terrible as he looked against Overeem and Harwin and Kane, the guy was still a UFC champion. I think a lot of people just kind of treat this guy as a bum. But he was a UFC champion, and you have to give him that. And I know he only beat Couture and Mir during his title run, but the guy was champion. So, the guy is a capable fighter. Striker versus wrestler matchup. I think it's really as simple as that. And what makes me even more hesitant to take Brock is that Brock tried to strike with Overeem. I mean, go back and watch that fight, and what's even crazier than him trying to strike with Overeem is that he had a little bit of success. I think he kind of did some damage to Overeem's eye with a jab. Really kind of bizarre, and even in the Carwin and the Kane fights, did manage to take Kane down, which is one reason why I'm why I'm leaning towards Lesnar here is because if he really commits to that takedown, I think he can get it. I mean, I don't think Kane was ever taken down by anyone else in the UFC. You guys might have to check me on that one, but yeah, Lesnar, got Kane down, but back to my original point, this guy was trying to strike with over him. That's just insane, and it was working for a little bit until he got destroyed, and I really worry, if he does that to Mark Hunt, he's just going to go to sleep. It's going to be ugly. But I think Lesnar kind of understands, how embarrassing those losses were. And I think he will be committed to getting that takedown. At least I hope so. But if he is, I don't see why he can't take Hunt down if he really commits himself to it. I know he hasn't been training and all that, the layoff, hasn't been an active fighter, but a guy of his size, a guy with as strong double leg as he has, I don't see why he couldn't take Hunt down if he really commits himself early, right away to that. Hunt, just, his frame, I don't think allows him to really sprawl or sidestep, get out of the way, and avoid a Lesnar takedown. I mean, I think his only way to stop it would to be an uppercut, but even there, Lesnar, I don't think even has to get low. It has to get him at the hips. Who was it? Heath Herring, who he just kind of put his head down, charged halfway across the cage, and blitzed him like a bull. If he does that to Hunt, I mean, I think he could just barrel him over. Just do anything to get this guy on the ground. And from there, Hunt's been mounted by Struve, mounted by Bigfoot in the first fight and almost pounded out and finished. And then we saw what Miocic did to him. I mean, just being a heavier guy carrying extra weight, Lesnar gets on top of him. I think it is completely over. It's like landing the knockout punch. He gets Hunt down. I think he just immediately starts pounding him out like he did to Mir. I think he could get a submission. I really like Lesnar big if he gets Hunt down. The question is, again, is Lesnar going to commit himself to that, or is he going to wait around, try to feel out Hunt, where, there I think Hunt will just knock him out with, like the first shot he throws. And Hunt doesn't come out of the gate, not that he's a slow starter, but he's not a guy who just chases after you. He also kind of feels you out, reads you, and then, kind of goes on the offensive. So I think it's really going to have to be Lesnar who commits himself to that takedown, but I think he really wants this win. He's going to come with a game plan that gives him the best chance of getting it, which is getting Hunt down, and I think he can get it. I know it's crazy and everyone's going to disagree with me and probably think that's stupid, but I'm taking Lesnar here. I'm going to say first round TKO. All right. And then the main event, light heavyweight unification bout, Cormier versus John Jones. I got to take John Jones. It's really interesting, though, how Jones looked against OSP in the last fight. Obviously a short notice opponent for Jones, and coming back from the long layoff and all the personal troubles he's had outside of the cage, and Cormier saying that he would have beat that version of John Jones, and I don't know if he would have. I mean, the Jones is saying that his camp was saying he's a game plan guy, and he really trains for one guy. So I don't know if on that night he would have looked like his old self and beat Cormier, but if he fought and looked like he did against OSP, then yeah, definitely I think Cormier would have beaten him. But we don't know, what what was really the case with Jones in that fight. But I have to go with John Jones. I really don't like that Cormier saying that, he's going to go out there and kill Jones, try to take his head off, just like he tried to do in the first fight. Jones is just too durable. He has too good a chin. This guy's never been dropped. Here and there hit with a few hard shots, but you're not going to knock out Jones. I mean, that's ridiculous for DC to say that. And if he's really going to fight like that, I think the guy's just, throwing away the title shot, because you're not going to take out Jones like that. What I think his best plan of attack would be is to be very calculated and patient against Jones. Try to outpoint him. Because Jones, he's really kind of resorted to, fighting in the clinch, putting his weight on guys, pushing them against the fence, and, boxing in the pocket like he did against Teixeira. I thought after that really masterful performance against Rampage that he had in his first title defense, I thought we were going to see Jones be like an Anderson Silva type guy, just picking guys apart at distance, and that just never really materialized. And I think it's because Jones really kind of lacks solid fundamental striking. He is very unorthodox and dynamic, but it's almost to the point where he's more dynamic than he is fundamentally sound. And I think that would be Cormier's best shot of winning, if he just tries to outbox Jones to win on points, not try and put everything into getting the finish, because we saw it just didn't work in the first fight. And he didn't look bad, he didn't look terrible, but what I saw in the first fight was a guy who did everything he could to go for the finish, do his best, and it just wasn't enough. He tired out, and Jones pretty much outclassed him from there. Managed to take him down, and he was so exhausted that he just had nothing to defend the takedown. So I don't think Cormier can fight like that. And in the Gustafsson fight, he took a ton of damage that I think just really had to take something out of him. Even got dropped in the fight before that against Rumble Johnson. So this guy's definitely, had at least one big war in another fight where he was dropped since the first fight with Jones. But man, that Gustafsson fight where he was dropped with that knee, that he even said, I think that took years off his life, or said something like that. And an older, slower Cormier who's taken a lot of damage, I just don't see what he can do against Jones. And even if he fought like I'm suggesting he does, even that I think that would be his best chance to win. I don't know if he would actually get it done. But Jones, I just think his takedown defense is too good to get out-wrestled by Cormier. In the clinch, he's better. He's just a stronger, more physical guy. And, he has those elbows and that oblique kick, all the unorthodox moves that just really frustrate his opponents. And, I don't see Cormier knocking him out. I just think it's going to be another fairly competitive fight, but where DC gives it his all, but it's just not enough. So I have to take Jones. I don't know, by finisher decision. That's kind of interesting. Given how much damage Cormier's taken in his last fight, but I'll have to think about that. But I am taking Jones to get the belt back. Alright guys, well we did it. That's it for my UFC 200 predictions. Check out my videos for the Tough 23 finale in Jacek versus Gadella, as well as Fight Night 90, Dos Santos versus Alvarez. Those will be linked in the description. Follow me on Twitter. It might already be up, but if it is, look in the description for also linked will be the collaboration video, which I'm going to do with best MMA picks and MMA Savant, where it'll be, a three-way kind of rundown of UFC 200. So check that out, or I'll let you guys know on Twitter when that's happening. And then I'll be back real soon with predictions for Fight Night Ferguson versus Chiesa, which is another really stellar main event. Thanks, guys. Take care. Have a good July 4th weekend. Enjoy the fights, and see you in the next vid. Bye.